Good afternoon and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon Sports Pavilion meeting for Wednesday, May 11th. We call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. We are minus one committee member. That being said, if there are no corrections or changes to the March minutes, seeing none, we will enter them as written. And moving forward, Barry, you are first up.
Okay, I'll review March and April. We had two very good months. League bowling revenue, we were up $33,662. Open play, we were up $11,560. Miscellaneous revenue, we were down $1,488. Total bowling revenue, we were up $43,734. Food and beverage, we were up $45,046, mostly due to the pub. Grand total bowling revenue, we were up $88,780. And total games bowled, we were up 15,134 games. So we had two very good months. Any questions?
Wow, that's great. Ron,
Barry,
you have a
can
question?
you just remind me what the miscellaneous revenues is?
Shoe rental, rent, things of that nature.
Any additional questions? Any audience questions? Okay. Barry, is there anything else?
Nope, that's it.
No? Okay. Well,
Short and sweet.
Thank you. Well done. Appreciate that. Oh, I was looking for Pete, but I see he is already ready to rock and roll. Thank you, Pete.
Well, first of all, I was doing the months like Barry was referencing. His was for March and April. I've given you the financials for February and March, and I had my mind on March, so sorry on the date up there. It is not March 11th, May 11th for the record, I guess. So I'm going to be kind of moving back and forth on a few. There's some intrigue into the financials, some really positive things that Barry was alluding to. So Mike, if you don't mind first bringing up our March financials, I'll tell you which one. That's it right there. So the first thing I wanted to kind of highlight was right here is your operating margin. And when I get to the presentation, I'll kind of show you some of the aspects of why that's favorable. But, you know, we do deteriorate a little bit in the quarter of April to June, but to be in a positive operating margin just speaks volumes for how well the bowling and the whole pavilion have been doing. And of course, the pub is integrated in there. So all the factors are coming together for a very, very positive environment coming out of the pavilion. So I then take all of this data here and I move it over to the presentation. So I'll now highlight some of those areas.
Pete, before you go away from that sheet, real quick, you guys don't have to go back. I just have a quick question. Under ancillary revenue for the variance, there's a 17,141. I'm wondering if that is that Lizard Acres?
No.
No, that's not.
Nope, that's
okay,
actually what he's referencing in the resurgence of the locker rentals, the shoe rentals, and things like that.
Super. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good question.
Thank you.
So for our presentation here, we're always going to reference budget in prior year. Up in the upper left, you can see I'm doing everything in thousands. So the 286 is not the revenue, it's the variance against the budget. So almost $250,000, or more than $250,000 favorable variance and against prior year. Percentage-wise, 60 and 83%, so just stellar. I'm going to hearken to ask you to ignore. We had a budget glitch on the bowling fees per line, a slight actual deterioration against the prior year. That isn't necessarily unusual because I think the league play has really rebounded, and that's probably one of the places that you get the lowest dollar amount per line. So it's not a bad thing. It's just a comparison. We get the very same thing in golf.
Thanks, Pete.
Any questions on revenues? I know I kind of whisked through these, but if not, I'll be welcome. Barry and I can hopefully answer it. So your revenues are broken up into various categories. This is what you were referencing, Lisa.
Okay.
The lineage is your bowling per se. Obviously stellar performance. The ancillary is exactly what we just mentioned, was the rent and the pro shops and the advertising and things like that, the rentals. Food and beverage, I'm going to highlight that even a little bit more, but when I give you the Lizard Acres contribution in a second. But yes, a huge chunk of this is coming off of the pub, but Barry's being a little bit shy on the food and beverage on the bowling sector too. Clearly is benefiting. I probably to the tune of 15 or 20 grand better than budget as well. So it's not all Lizard Acres, it's pervasive. So, and then the all other is immaterial.
Okay.
So again, the same 286,342 revenues. For the most part, you know, you somewhat expect some variability in your wages and your repairs, and there is, or they are to the negative, but 29 grand negative against 286 positive revenue environment, you can kind of tell Barry's managing it very well.
Right.
And that's what's leading to the next one, which demonstrates the overall operating margin being so favorable to budget and prior year. And so with that, that would conclude my financials. I'll stop there, but then I'm going to kind of show you the Lizard Acres in a second. And to some extent, maybe I'll just jump there. You had it up, Mike. That's perfect.
Oh, yeah.
So the Lizard Acres has only one number that's an absolute, okay, and that's comes right off of Barry's. He gets the revenue right from the cash collections. Right. The rest of them are all estimates, but I think very solid estimates. The first one, as you look at the revenues, you don't see expense down in the operating because just the way we do our operating for our income statement, we do it at net. And so the cost of goods sold is just an estimate, but over time, that's pretty consistently about. So you can feel pretty comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. The labor is, again, just an estimate, but I made this to be timely with the number of days in the month. Tried to bring in benefit costs. Talked with Barry about, days sensitivity. So we really, I think, honed that in even a little better than when I had done in previous ones. I believe this is a good reflection of the main cost that emerges from there. And the next one is just a guess, but I think a reasonable guess for, expenses such as napkins and straws and cups and all that, and various other stuff that may go on, but it is just a guess. And the next one you won't actually find in the income statement anywhere in the current year. This is just saying when we did the ramp up in May and June of 21, there was about $11,000 of cost. And I thought a true depiction of the contribution should say some of those costs should be borne out over I picked a 2-year cycle. It could have been 3 years, it could have been none, but that one is not buried into. That's why the overall contribution of about roughly $2,000 a month is muted a little bit by that $4,000 startup cost. Mm-hmm. And again, the rest of it is estimates, but I'd argue they're pretty good estimates. And then the other faction that I kind of wanted to highlight before I open up Q&A is if you do take the 148 and the 74 up there and you pull it in, this is what I was referencing earlier, and you pull it into the overall food and beverage, that's where you still get another 10 or 15, 20 grand on top of it. I mentioned that already, but if you go to the expenses, if I pull that 50 grand that we're pulling out, saying is attributable to labor to do the pub, now look at the negative 502 versus 492 on labor. What this would say is that Barry is operating the bowling, the non-pub area, at almost a 40,000 favorable clip. And I asked him kind of ahead of time, just to make sure I understood that, but he's managing with some shortages in his staffing, and if he wants to elaborate, that's up to him. But he's doing all of this revenue generation on short staff, and I think he ought to be commended for that. So at least from the CFO's chair, and seems like I'd say majority of the people are pleased with the product. And that's really all I had. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Pete. This is exactly what I was looking for
Good.
back in March when we talked. I really appreciate this report. So before I go into any great detail, does any of the other committee members have any questions for Pete off this report?
What did you use for a baseline for your estimates? Did you have something that you went by to?
Yeah, for cost of goods sold is actually our markups. And also I take a run rate of the actual costs that come in for, we have actual expenses. It's not just an estimate. I'm paying for his liquors, for the beer and the wines and those expenses. But to give an average is what I did. It's not going to be specific to a particular month. Does that make sense? Hopefully, yeah. And the labor was extracted based on how he staffs the pub.
Anybody else? Y'all are
Thank
quiet.
you.
Thanks, Pete. So I have one more question, Pete, I'm sorry. So I was thinking, one of the reasons for this report too, I'm wondering, and Barry, you may want to jump in on this too, is since the pub is doing so well and it seems to be gaining momentum and sustaining itself, and I'm wondering if going forward, and maybe something we should be looking at coming back, maybe not, from the summer and getting into fall, is something that you want the pub to have, maybe its own part-time food and beverage manager, where you don't have to be doing this?
No.
No, you want to continue doing it?
I'd rather control it myself.
You
And we
got it.
really can't afford that
Okay,
because they don't come cheap.
right.
I'm cheap.
It would still be somebody that would work under you, but, and I was
I'm just
thinking,
kidding.
we heard that about you though, Barry. Okay. So, well, kudos to you, Barry, and your staff for the great job you do over there. We really appreciate it. So, thanks, Pete. Any questions from our audience? Oh, there we go.
Kay Williams, 101-631. We've been asking for real numbers for some time, so I have a variety of questions, probably mostly for Pete, maybe some for Barry, but these are a compilation of questions of mine and several others who have asked the same thing, so I'll just take them one at a time. First of all, how much do we pay the musicians, the karaoke, or the trivia that put on those events?
The singers or entertainment is $300 for 3 hours. Trivia is $50 for the night. Everybody earns the same amount of money,
And karaoke,
300,
300?
3 hours. And they bring all their own equipment.
Right, I was aware of that. Pete, what is included in the other costs? I know it's a catch-all, but can you give us an idea of what's included in that, what that's a combination of for the numbers you came up with?
I highlighted a few of those earlier. Supplies for the, cups and napkins and straws and all that. But I do think that I might need to chat with Barry a little bit about bringing some of those costs to bear, for the karaoke's and the, what was the other one? I've gone blank all of a sudden. Trivia, yeah.
Okay.
So it probably is a little bit understated based on some numbers that he just mentioned, because I only put $300 a month, and you might do that in
Okay.
one day.
What is included in the startup costs? I think that was a
Yeah.
concern when we first went with the idea of doing the Lizard Acres Pub, was what was it going to cost to get it started? And for example, a couple of things that people have asked repeatedly is, how much did we spend for furniture? I mean, I know that we had our art and design committee that painted the cactus on the wall, the lizards on the walls on the cactus, but what other actual costs have we expended to get it open?
So, I actually didn't highlight it, but on my Lizard Acres contribution over in the nomenclature off to the left, the exact amount actually, this to June 30th, when there was no activity at all in the current year, there was no such thing as Lizard Acres until it went opened. There was 11,600 for a variety of things. It could have been paint. It definitely was some of these non-capitalizable level pieces of equipment.
It was
or furniture.
11,600 what, Pete?
604, yeah.
I guess the other question everybody is wondering is it worth it, and what's next? There's lots of, I think, misunderstanding and concern about this being in the operating budget, so the different plans for it and things that normally might have been reviewed on other projects by standing committees and whatever hasn't happened, and so other than coming to this committee. But I think the concern is, where do we go from here? And now that you've had 9 months' experience, is it worth it? But I think more concerned, Barry, I'll ask the question, the elephant in the room, is it big enough? Is it too big? I know I've heard talk of, gee, we don't have a cooler big enough to hold the kegs of beer. And then the flip of that current rumor is Barry spending $4,000 to put a closet out by Mimo's in the lobby for a beer cooler. A, is that true? And what's the status on that?
We did order a beer cooler, but it's going to be placed outside, so we don't have to build anything. It's a self-staining box that's refrigerated.
Outside of the building?
Yes.
Is it secure and safe there?
Oh, yeah. They're made for outside. We had one before
Okay.
when Mike was there in the restaurant, so it was there for 20-some years
Okay.
before it just fell apart. So that's part of the plan. Are we big enough? Right now, we are.
Okay.
We are turning a small profit, and that's our goal. We don't want to make a lot of money. We want to provide a nice place for our residents to come and afford. And that's the biggest thing, is the affordability of purchasing beer and wine there. We're much cheaper than the outside world. So in a normal bar, the profit would be a lot higher.
Oh, absolutely.
Out there you're spending $7, $8 for a draft beer. Here you're doing $3 or $4. And same with wine.
Where
So,
do we buy our beer?
from a distributor.
From a distributor. So
Yeah,
it's
you have to.
not a quick run to Costco or Sam's. Only once in a while?
No. That's where I go, to rehab.
The other question is, do you anticipate the hours are going to stay about the same?
Yes,
Do those hours seem to meet the needs of the residents?
yes, absolutely, yes. We have very, very few people there at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So I think it's working out well.
And it hasn't impacted the Wii bowling and the darts and the other activities there that people like to enjoy?
Well, if you ask the dart people, that's a different question. They say yes. But we have to understand that the darts is a very, very small group of people that play for free. So
But would it be bigger if they had more room?
I don't think, because before we were in the lobby and we had all the room they needed. So
Right?
I just think it's a select few of people. But
Okay.
they do tend to come in our off nights, and there's no issue at all. It's just Wednesdays and Saturday nights it really interferes with people who want to play darts.
Okay. So you think it's here to stay? It's going to stay in the same space? We're not
Yes.
going to hear a hue and cry for more room, at least not in the near future? With your best crystal ball, Barry? Thank you.
So, thanks.
Thank you, Kay. Great questions. So where I was going to go with this was we have a visitor, and I'm going to kind of put him on the spot if I can. Mr. Schwind is with us today, and I'm going to ask him if he wouldn't mind coming to the podium and addressing this. I think this is one of the things that was asked in the master plan survey that went out, and I'm going to see if he'll maybe share some information with us as far as what the residents thought about this. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. Friday at 9 o'clock, we will have our consultant in town, and she will be presenting the findings per se and the summary of the recent elements of the master plan that have been concluded. So there was a survey that went out with over 5,000 responses from owner members, and then she spent a few days dealing with focus groups, just kind of talking to members, trying to get a feel for needs, wants, desires, and that type of thing. So when she responds on that within her report that she'll be talking about, there's a couple of things that have kind of came up as far as the ladder goes, as far as what some of these people are perceiving as need and wants. And one of the things I think on top of the list, obviously pickleball climbed up there. It's the #1 sport in America and growing as fast. So that is something we'll be dealing with. But the thing that really came out of, I would say almost nowhere really, is that of casual dining. And that's one thing inside the walls that I think people that are living here are lacking, or at least they're telling us that. And so we do have an opportunity with Lizard Acres and Mimo's next door. We have a contract with them. If that can be married or blended in a little better to work at a cost saving scenario, maybe. But again, that's just something to figure out. And then on another realm, and it's again in the planning stages, but if there's a desire for casual dining inside of the walls for the owner members to enjoy, we don't have a location at the current time, but that's certainly something that planning committees can talk about. But Michelle will be giving a full update as far as the master plan goes on Friday. I believe it's in this room at 9 o'clock. It'll be televised and taped. So if you can't make it, you can certainly see it at a different time at your leisure. But I think that's of the two things really that have climbed the ladder per se at this level of our master plan update was the pickleball and the casual dining. So there may be an opportunity down the road to, I'm not saying the governing board has to operate it, but you know, if there's an opportunity for us to partner with someone to provide that service, terrific.
Sure. Thanks, Bill. I appreciate the update. Any questions? Covered up my agenda. Well, we've kind of covered all of everything kind of lumped in together. So is there anything else for Lizard Acres Pub that you want to cover now that we've kind of covered everything together? Barry, else?
We are continuing entertainment, this month in May and probably in June because the crowds still are sustaining the cost of that. So we have John Gamber in Artworks and Ed Johnson for the rest of this month. So we'll see what happens.
And then for throughout the summer, are you going to back it down or
No, I'm going to
stop?
go forward in June because our
Okay.
numbers are still good in May.
Okay,
So it's still worthwhile to do. So if I see them drastically fall off, then we'll cut it back.
then you'll cut it back?
Yes.
Okay, super, thank you. With that, I was hoping Karen would be here by now to discuss the committee evaluation sheets. So I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to watch the last, the governing board meeting at the end of the month. But there are two committees that are going to do the evaluations the way we are, our committee and charter clubs. So after I adjourn the meeting, you guys will break you up into a couple of different groups, and then I'll step out, and you will go ahead and kind of do a 10-15 minute group discussion and do your committee evaluation this way, as opposed to doing them online. This year, we're going to just try something a little bit different. There are two other committees that they're going to continue to do theirs online. But I went ahead and kind of jumped in and said our committee would do it this way this year. And I know Ron is grumbling, but that's okay. Oh, well, you can do it here too. He did his online, but you can do it here too. Are there any other committee comments?
Barry, I have a couple for you, if I may. It's not, it's been addressed to me a few times, not millions of times, just a few times by friends and people that go to Lizard Pubs, and they go there for the entertainment. And some of the concerns have been, that I've been told, is that when they're having the entertainment and the people with the dartboards are playing, it seems to kind of distract from the entertainment as far as some of the people there. So I guess that's the main question I had. But then I thought, I know they're sitting there, and I know at one time they wanted more than that. And so then I came up and said to myself, there's 29 pool tables in the pool hall, of which how many are truly used to total extreme use? Is it possible that there would be room in there to take a couple pool tables out of there and give them the space they would need? They'd still be able to get over to the bar right there outside in the bowling alley and get a drink. It was just a thought, because it came up about how they felt it was distracting to the entertainment that was going on.
The Darters have agreed to, they used to have a league that came in on Wednesdays. So they've agreed to move to Thursday. Now, this was just a couple of weeks ago. We had a couple of people come in last Wednesday and they quit because it was so packed and they didn't appreciate the noise. Moving it to the billiard room, we're going to have a lot of angry billiard players. We at one time planned to take 4 tables out and put a wall up and then make that a Wii and dart room, but that just got sidelined. So we could maybe take another look at that. You'd probably get away with doing that more than just taking 2 tables out and having them within the billiard area with billiard players. They're pretty sensitive.
I know, but it is a personal thing. When I've been in the bowling alley more than once, and I never see it really packed, like there was 9 tables being used today.
At night,
At
you're
night
right.
it gets used, yeah.
You're right. After 5 o'clock, there's
Yeah.
plenty of room.
And that's why I looked at, you walk in, you got those first 4 tables
Yeah.
right behind the lockers, are they?
Correct, right.
Right. That would seem that would be a logical
Yeah,
place
we
for that.
had that as a proposal, but
Yeah,
still on the back burner.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, with no more committee comments, are there any more audience? Bill?
Thank you. I don't want to put you on the spot, but a couple of emails and phone calls we received recently relative to our summer hours. I just want Barry to touch on that. I mean, it's been going on for a couple of years, but there's been a little bit of confusion for some folks, and we just want to maybe get that in this particular setting, if anybody's watching this meeting, and Barry, if you will.
Thank you. We proposed a couple years ago, or the year before COVID, that the weekend business, especially Sundays, were dead. We weren't even making payroll. That, and with addition to Friday night, we stayed open 3 Friday nights when the leagues were ended, and we only took in under $30. One night we took in $6. So we decided to close on Friday nights and Sunday all day, all night. It's a business decision. I think it's best for everyone because we're going to save money The other way, we have to staff the whole facility, because once we open, we have to have a staff. You can't open with one person or two, you gotta have 3 or 4 people that actually have to be there. So far, we've had a couple complaints, but overall, not a lot of complaints, but strictly a business decision. But we did expand our hours during the week. So in the past, we were only open until 7 o'clock and a year ago, we decided to go to 9 o'clock. So we have expanded the evening hours a little bit. And so far, that's worked because we picked up a couple new leagues. Things are looking very positive this summer, so it's working out well, hopefully.
And just one comment on top of that too. We like, I think you probably heard in the news, everywhere else, people are hurting for employees.
Right.
And we are doing our absolute best to kind of keep our facilities operating as best we can with what we've got. We try to hire folks in Todd's world. We get people coming in and they work 2 days and you never see them again. It's just the condition, it's just what we're up against. But in Barry's world, a lot of part-time work goes on in the Sports Pavilion, and extending hours, extending days, especially when we're not getting a lot of revenue coming our way. Barry's facing a little bit of difficulty when it comes to how many hours a actual part-time individual can work. We're limited by laws as to what we can do, and that kind of plays into the decision as well. So we are doing our absolute best, but as we've done since the COVID scenario, Sundays is just not a day, it seems, that the Sports Pavilion is being used.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. Thank you, Barry. Appreciate it. Oh, Ron?
I could be Bill or it could be Barry, I'm not sure which, but anyway. I can't comprehend memos, whatever it is, memos. I can't comprehend why he doesn't want to stay open during the evening when you're having entertainment, to be able to provide food or appetizers or anything. Because he closes at 2 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon, whatever it is. Why does that have to happen? Why can't you allow that? I think more food in there wouldn't hurt the operation. It keeps people there, brings people in because they can get a sandwich. We need a place here for a restaurant. We all know that. We're going to Portobello and Grand and everywhere else. So that's just my opinion. I don't understand why they don't stay open later.
The biggest reason, and I looked at his books, they showed me his books because I was questioning that too. From 2 o'clock till 7, he did virtually nothing. Mimos does not get the support of the folks around here, our residents, that probably he should. We're going to take a hard look at his lease because it's a leased operation. So, we have some input, we don't have a lot of input, but he just had no business, just none at all. His main trade is breakfast and lunch, and after that, and it might be his fault, I don't know. I don't know how the people perceive him at restaurant, but evening business, just not there.
Right. And I think initially when the pub was opened, we did have negotiations with them, and they had table tents out there, and they were trying to sell burgers or dogs and some of those things to kind of offset that. But what he has to pay his employees to be there and stay there, he had to increase his price, and that really tipped the scale the other way. He wasn't getting a lot of business, which kind of showed up. And then, as you probably know, he did pass away. And so now the family is kind of dealing with that. Again, we've contracted through 23 with Mimos, and not really sure the direction that family wants to go after this contract is up. And so again, it's all part of the process that we're kind of trying to manage through. But we understand the problem, we understand the concern, and we're getting there.
Is that our fiscal year 23?
Yes, sir. I'll get back with you on the exact date of that contract. But
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. If there are no more questions. Okay, before we adjourn, I would just like to say thank you to everybody who served on the committee. I really appreciate all the work you've put in. I appreciate all your help. Barry, Corrine, thank you for being patient with us, working with the committee while we were all learning. I hope we weren't too much of a headache for you, but we appreciate you working with us. As far as there will be, this is our last meeting. We will not be having a meeting in June. So with that being said, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.